Welcome, modern consumer, to the pristine, fluorescent-lit labyrinth of the American supermarket, an architectural marvel constructed not to feed your family, but to systematically harvest your paycheck. From the very moment you push through those automatic glass doors, your free will is politely confiscated at the threshold, replaced by a series of invisible psychological tripwires engineered by Madison Avenue puppet masters. We begin our corporate audit with myth number 1, the innocent belief that the massive rolling wire basket you push ahead of you, the modern shopping cart, is sized purely for your personal physical convenience. You assume it is large simply to accommodate a plump Thanksgiving turkey or a family-sized box of detergent. In the cold, calculating light of retail psychology, the shopping cart is a structural weapon. Over the past several decades, corporate chains have quietly and systematically nearly doubled the physical volume of the standard grocery cart. This is not a generous accommodation for larger families. It is a calculated manipulation of the human visual cortex. When a human being pushes a vehicle with a massive gaping cavity through an aisle, a profound sense of psychological scarcity triggers within the brain. An empty or half-filled cart flashes an unconscious signal of failure, a deep-seated evolutionary panic that you have not gathered enough resources for the winter. By simply altering the dimensions of the metal basket, retail conglomerates have successfully tricked your brain into feeling incomplete. A subtle geometric heist that directly inflates individual consumer spending by over 40%. You do not fill the cart because you are hungry. You fill it because the empty wire grid is judging you. This meticulously engineered geometry brings us directly to the structural traps of myth number 2, the comforting assumption that the most popular, essential household staples, your daily milk, your loaf of bread, and your dozen eggs, are tucked away at the absolute back wall of the store by sheer architectural coincidence or simple refrigeration logistics. The corporate narrative suggests it is merely a matter of keeping the heavy loading docks close to the cold storage units. Let us dismantle this logistical fairy tale. The placement of essential commodities is a ruthless, deliberate exercise in forced foot traffic. Retail architects call this the decompression zone and the destination layout. By placing the very items that 90% of the population requires on the most distant perimeter of the floor plan, the store forces your physical body to march through a gauntlet of high-margin temptations. To get a simple carton of milk, you are legally compelled by the laws of physics to navigate past rows of sparkling sodas, brightly colored breakfast cereals, and high-profit processed snacks. Every single foot of linoleum tile you cross is a commercial toll booth designed to wear down your cognitive resistance. By the time you finally reach the dairy case at the back of the grid, your mental energy has been depleted by a barrage of visual stimuli, making you exceptionally vulnerable to the impulse purchases that line the return journey to the registers. You came for a $2 gallon of milk, but the architecture ensured you paid a $50 exit fee. Your journey through the aisles is further compromised by the vertical deceptions of myth number 3. The assumption that the products displayed proudly at eye level represent the best economic value, the highest quality ingredients, or the most popular choices of your fellow citizens. We are conditioned to believe that the marketplace naturally bubbles the best options to our immediate line of sight. In reality, the middle shelves of a grocery aisle are not a meritocracy. They are highly lucrative real estate properties leased out through a system of corporate bribery known as slotting fees. Multi-billion-dollar global conglomerates pay millions of dollars in cold cash directly to supermarket chains simply to secure that precious eye-level real estate. This artificial placement ensures that the most expensive, heavily processed national brands are the first things to meet your gaze. Meanwhile, the cheaper store brands, the organic local alternatives, and the genuine bulk values are aggressively banished to the unreachable top shelves or the back-breaking bottom tiers where you are unlikely to look. The system is rigged to reward the largest advertising budget, meaning the average consumer is continuously nudged toward the lowest value and the highest price point. completely oblivious to the fact that the shelf in front of them is a pay-to-play corporate billboard. This financial manipulation extends directly into the psychological illusions of myth number 4, the absolute certainty that high-visibility promotional signs reading "Buy 2, get 1 free" or 10 for $10 require you to purchase the maximum specified quantity to receive any discount at all. The bold red ink and aggressive typography scream urgency, convincing the frantic shopper that they must load their cart with 10 identical cans of soup or 3 massive bags of chips to unlock the corporate mercy of a sale price. This is a brilliant pricing illusion. If you possess the patience to bypass the flashing graphics and examine the microscopic, legally mandated fine print at the bottom of the tag, you will find that in the vast majority of cases, the discount applies mathematically to individual items. You can buy just 1 can of soup for a single dollar or a single bag of chips at the reduced rate. The phrasing is entirely a linguistic trap, designed to manipulate human hoarding instincts and accelerate inventory turnover. By framing the transaction as a bulk requirement, corporations successfully force consumers into overbuying perishable or unnecessary goods that ultimately end up rotting in a pantry, transforming a supposed consumer discount into an immediate corporate cash injection. The sensory deception becomes even more visceral when we approach the perimeter of the store to expose the artificial freshness of myth number 5. The belief that the crisp, automated mist of water sprayed periodically over the vegetables, accompanied by the theatrical rumble of recorded thunder, keeps your produce clean, healthy, and direct from the soil. It is a beautiful performance that evokes imagery of a morning dew settling over a pristine family farm. In the sterile world of bacterial biology, this misting system is an absolute horror show. The constant application of surface moisture actually creates a highly fertile, damp breeding ground where bacteria and mold can multiply at an accelerated rate, causing the vegetables to rot and spoil significantly faster once you bring them home. Furthermore, the water washes away the natural protective coatings of certain greens. Why, then, do the corporate masters insist on drowning the broccoli? Because the artificial reflection of light off the wet leaves triggers a primitive biological cue in the human brain that equates moisture with life and immediate freshness. More importantly, it is a brilliant weights and measures swindle. Leafy green vegetables act like tiny sponges. The continuous misting ensures they absorb maximum water weight right before they are placed on the checkout scale, forcing you to pay premium vegetable prices for ordinary municipal tap water. Finally, we breathe deep to confront the chemical nostalgia of myth number 6, the pleasant assumption that the rich, intoxicating aroma of freshly baked bread or roasting coffee wafting near the entrance of the store is merely a natural, innocent byproduct of the local bakery department. You smile, your stomach growls, and you assume the baker has just pulled a fresh tray from the oven. In reality, you are inhaling an engineered synthetic aerosol. Modern supermarkets utilize sophisticated scent marketing systems, deploying hidden computerized diffusers tucked inside the ventilation ducts to pump chemically manufactured food fragrances directly into your respiratory system. These scents are often completely synthetic, formulated in laboratory environments to perfectly trigger immediate childhood nostalgia and a sharp biological hunger response. The corporate masters understand that a hungry brain is a compliant brain. The moment these chemical compounds hit your olfactory receptors, they bypass the rational budgeting centers of your frontal lobe, inducing a mild state of cognitive impairment where your pre-planned shopping list is instantly overridden by an urgent primal desire to consume. You are not smelling real bread. You are smelling a corporate chemical weapon designed to make your wallet surrender before you've even reached the first aisle. We step out of the supermarket and into the warm, tantalizingly aromatic world of the restaurant industry for part 2, an environment where every upholstered booth, ambient lighting fixture, and printed syllable is engineered to separate you from your hard-earned cash. We begin our culinary audit at the table, examining the graphic architecture of the menu itself to dismantle myth number 7. The innocent belief that the dollar signs and currency symbols printed next to your food options are just helpful, standard formatting intended for your reading convenience. You assume the little typographical marker is just a polite piece of punctuation. In the hyper-calibrated world of behavioral economics, that tiny dollar symbol is a psychological trigger that reminds the human brain of financial loss. When a consumer looks at a menu and sees a currency sign, it instantly activates the pain centers of the brain associated with parting with resources. To bypass this evolutionary defense mechanism, corporate menu designers systematically strip all currency symbols from their layouts. A premium steak is no longer listed as $35. It is simply presented as a bare, unadorned $35. By erasing the currency sign, the corporate masters successfully detach the food item from the reality of your bank account, transforming a stark financial transaction into a neutral aesthetic choice. This simple typographical deletion reduces spending guilt and is scientifically proven to increase average table spend by nearly 10%, allowing you to happily bankrupt yourself without ever realizing you are looking at a ledger. This verbal and visual manipulation brings us directly to the linguistic trickery of myth number 8. The absolute certainty that high-status phrases like Angus beef or premium selection, printed on fast food wrappers, serve as a guaranteed seal of a higher, safer, and inherently gourmet grade of meat. The corporate marketing machine has successfully conditioned the public to equate the word Angus with luxury dining. Let us expose the regulatory loopholes of the livestock industry. Angus is not a measurement of meat quality, tenderness, or health standards. It is simply a breed of black beef cattle. An animal can be a certified Angus cow and still produce the lowest, toughest, most nutritionally deficient grade of commercial meat allowed by law. Fast food conglomerates utilize this biological classification to dress up standard industrial-grade meat in the vestments of fine dining. By slapping an Angus label onto a generic patty, they can bypass official government quality gradings entirely, charging you a hefty luxury premium for a product that is structurally identical to the cheapest meat on the market. You are not paying for an elite culinary cut. You are paying a massive markup for a basic vocabulary word. The deception becomes even more glaringly visual when we turn our gaze to the media landscape to dismantle myth number 9. The naive assumption that the pristine, towering burgers and perfectly plump tacos showcased in fast food commercials are merely real food, styled under exceptionally good studio lighting. We have all experienced the crushing disappointment of opening a greasy paper wrapper to find a deflated, soggy mass of grey protein that looks nothing like the television ad. The reality is that the item on your television screen is a toxic, completely inedible optical illusion constructed by professional food stylists using industrial materials. To create a commercial burger, the corporate masters do not rely on a kitchen. They rely on a toolbox. The perfect bun is carefully stuffed with hidden cardboard inserts to maintain its rigid, inflated structure, while the individual sesame seeds are glued on one by one with precision tweezers. The meat patty is only seared on the outside for a fraction of a second to prevent shrinkage, then painted with dark brown shoe polish and seared with hot metal skewers to fake deep, appetizing grill marks. The glistening cheese is melted artificially using an industrial heat gun, while the fresh lettuce is pinned into place with hidden sewing needles. If you see a bowl of cereal, that crisp white liquid is not wholesome milk, which would make the flakes soggy instantly. It is toxic, heavy-duty white Elmer's glue. The rich maple syrup cascading down a stack of fluffy pancakes is actually dark motor oil, which won't absorb into the sponge. You are being psychologically manipulated by an industrial sculpture that would poison you if you ever tried to bite into it. Your visual cortex is similarly ambushed the moment you sit down at an upscale establishment, leading us directly to the geometric deceptions of myth number 10, the belief that the oversized, wide-brimmed plates or unique, deep-centered bowls utilized in trendy restaurants are chosen purely for their artistic flair and avant-garde presentation. This is an optical illusion known to cognitive scientists as the Delboeuf illusion. The human brain does not judge the physical volume of a food portion in isolation. It evaluates size completely relative to the boundaries of the container hosting it. When a chef places a tiny, high-margin portion of food in the center of a massive plate with sprawling, empty white margins, the brain is instantly tricked into perceiving the food as an elite, concentrated luxury. More importantly, when the food is consumed, the vast negative space of the plate manipulates your visual perception into feeling that you have consumed a far more substantial and satisfying meal than you actually did. The restaurant owners are utilizing basic geometry to shrink their ingredient costs while maximizing your psychological satisfaction, serving you an incredibly cheap fraction of nutrition on a giant piece of ceramic and charging you triple for the empty space. This predatory feeding strategy continues with the apparent generosity of myth number 11, the warm, comforting belief that the basket of free bread, tortilla chips, or fresh salsa dropped onto your table the very moment you sit down is a generous, hospitable gift from a welcoming kitchen. This is not a gesture of traditional hospitality. It is a calculated physiological ambush. When you consume simple, highly processed carbohydrates on an empty stomach right before a meal, it triggers an immediate massive spike in your blood glucose levels. This sudden surge forces your pancreas to flood your bloodstream with a massive wave of insulin to process the sugar. Within minutes, your blood sugar crashes violently, sending an urgent, panicked signal to your brain that you are experiencing acute starvation. This artificial biological hunger completely overrides your body's natural satiety signals. By feeding you cheap flour and salt the moment you arrive, the restaurant masterfully ensures that you become biologically ravenous, forcing your chemically manipulated brain to overorder expensive appetizers, larger entrees, and high-profit, sugary cocktails that you never originally intended to buy. Finally, we expose the viral marketing psychology of myth number 12, the charming subculture belief that secret fast food menu items are genuine, accidental leaks, or clever insider hacks discovered by highly creative customers operating outside the corporate system. We love to feel like we are beating the system by ordering a complex, unlisted combination of ingredients. Let us look past the digital hype. The secret menu is an entirely manufactured corporate marketing strategy. Fast food chains intentionally design, test, and distribute these unlisted items to their franchises, providing standardized prep sheets and ingredient flows to their staff long before the public ever hears of them. By intentionally leaking these items through social media influencers and carefully staged internet rumors, the corporation creates an artificial sense of exclusivity, viral engagement, and a false sense of consumer control. You are led to believe you are an elite culinary hacker exploiting a flaw in the matrix, when in reality, you are voluntarily executing a pre-calculated marketing campaign that drives massive traffic to their drive-thrus while making you do the advertising work for free. We slide our magnifying glass over the smooth, gloss-coated surfaces of consumer goods for part 3, entering the visual psychological theater of the packaging industry, a realm where corporate lawyers and graphic designers collaborate to morph chemical compounds into wholesome family nourishment. We begin this structural investigation by tearing down the linguistic camouflage of myth number 13, the comforting belief that a bold, health-focused badge reading "No sugar added" or 0% sugar guarantees a product is inherently low in sugar, chemically pure, and perfectly healthy for your waistline. The modern consumer has been conditioned to treat these labels like a green light for reckless consumption. Let us expose the chemical renaming loopholes that govern modern food manufacturing. While a corporation may technically refrain from dumping standard, granulated table sugar into the mixing vat, they routinely achieve the exact same hyper-sweet profile by exploiting over 60 alternative chemical names for saccharides. They flood the recipe with maltodextrin, high fructose corn syrup, crystalline fructose, barley malt, evaporated cane juice, or concentrated apple and pear juice. By using 5 or 6 different technical variations of sweetening agents instead of one, the corporate masters can manipulate the legally mandated ingredient list, scattering these heavy sugars further down the fine print so they don't appear as the primary component. Your body's metabolic system cannot read a corporate label. It processes these complex industrial syrups exactly like raw sugar, causing the exact same insulin spikes and fat storage while your brain celebrates its supposed dietary triumph. This linguistic sleight of hand brings us directly to the pastoral graphics of myth number 14, the assumption that foods adorned with earthy phrases like all natural or 100% organic have undergone rigorous government laboratory screening to certify their absolute purity and health safety. We see a rustic brown cardboard box decorated with a picture of a green leaf, and our brain automatically assumes a federal inspector has personally verified the item's wholesome origin. In reality, terms like natural possess virtually no strict, legally binding regulatory definition under federal law. A food manufacturer can pack a highly processed, chemical-laden food item with artificial stabilizers, synthetic texturizers, and industrially rendered preservatives, and still legally slap the words all natural across the front of the box, simply because the basic molecules originally originated from a plant or an animal somewhere on Earth. The entire packaging identity is a calculated theatrical stage set designed to manipulate your environmental subconscious, utilizing soft pastel tones and unbleached textures to mask a highly industrialized product that would otherwise look entirely at home in a chemical laboratory. Your relationship with the packaging is further compromised by the physical shrinking act of myth number 15, the absolute rule that if a product box, jar, or bag maintains its identical historical size, shape, and retail price at checkout, you are receiving the exact same physical amount of product that you bought the previous week. This is a masterfully quiet corporate strategy known to economists as shrinkflation. When ingredient and manufacturing costs rise, corporate executives know that raising the retail price will trigger an immediate, angry consumer backlash at the register. To bypass your financial defense mechanisms, they assemble engineers to subtly reduce the internal volume of the package while keeping the external dimensions completely unchanged. They will widen the concave bottom indentation of a peanut butter jar, narrow the middle waistline of a plastic bottle, thin the borders of a chocolate bar, or inject an increased volume of pressurized nitrogen gas into a potato chip bag to fill out the empty space. You walk out of the store completely unaware that you have just accepted a 10 to 15% pay cut in your actual volume of food, paying the exact same currency for a product that has been systematically hollowed out behind your back. The financial absurdity of this geometric trickery is perhaps best exemplified by the global hydration matrix of myth number 16, the premium fantasy that luxury bottled spring water is harvested from untouched, pristine mountain glaciers or crystal-clear underground aquifers located far from the grimy reach of modern civilization. The label displays a breathtaking, snow-capped alpine peak and a sparkling stream of pure water, convincing you to happily fork over a massive premium for a plastic bottle. Let us pierce the industrial reality of the beverage industry. Major global beverage giants frequently obtain their raw material by simply hooking up high-volume industrial plumbing directly to standard municipal tap water systems, using the exact same water that fills your local public swimming pools or bathroom sinks. They run this ordinary urban water through a series of basic carbon filters to remove the taste of chlorine, bottle it in cheap petroleum plastics, slap a picture of a fictitious snowy mountain on the exterior, and upsell it to the public at an astronomical 2,000% markup. You are not paying for the legendary water of life, you are paying a massive luxury tax for a piece of disposable plastic and a picture of a mountain that the water inside has never actually seen. This deceptive environmental branding expands into the broader corporate public relations matrix of myth number 17, the belief that green packaging materials, eco-friendly certifications, and recycling arrows mean a multinational conglomerate is actively devoting its resources to saving the planet and reducing global pollution. This is a highly calculated public relations maneuver known to media critics as greenwashing. Corporate marketing boards frequently discover that it is infinitely cheaper to spend $10 million on an aggressive, green-colored advertising campaign celebrating sustainability than it is to actually spend $500 million re-engineering their toxic supply chains or abandoning cheap, single-use plastics. They fill their television commercials with soothing acoustic guitars, imagery of sea turtles, and vague promises of future carbon neutrality, while simultaneously lobbying governments behind closed doors to weaken environmental protections and continue dumping industrial waste into the global ecosystem. The green label on your bottle is not an environmental rescue plan. It is a psychological shield designed to neutralize your consumer guilt so you can continue purchasing their products without a guilty conscience. Finally, we decode the manipulative mathematics displayed on the reverse side of the package to expose myth number 18, the assumption that the serving size listed at the absolute top of the nutrition facts panel represents a legally mandated, medically backed health recommendation for a single ordinary human meal. When you glance at a bag of cookies and see that it only contains 100 calories per serving, your brain breathes a sigh of relief. This is a deliberate exercise in statistical gerrymandering. Food corporations artificially shrink the definition of a single serving down to absurdly microscopic proportions, such as 3 individual potato chips, half a generic toaster pastry, or a single fraction of a bottled beverage, solely to force the accompanying calorie, fat, and sodium numbers to look completely innocent at a quick glance. They are fully aware that the average human being will consume the entire container in a single sitting, but by legally breaking that package down into 4 or 5 artificial servings on paper, they can disguise a lethal dose of sodium and sugar as a light, harmless afternoon snack, transforming a government-mandated safety label into a deceptive corporate cloaking device. We step directly onto the polished floorboards of the general retail sector for Part 4, an environment where the very price tags hanging from the merchandise are encoded with psychological commands designed to override your financial self-preservation. We begin our economic audit by smashing the festive consumer hysteria surrounding myth number 19, the universal belief that major holiday shopping events like Black Friday and doorbuster sales offer the absolute lowest, most honest prices of the entire calendar year. The public has been trained to treat these winter sales like an act of corporate charity, waking up at dawn to fight their fellow citizens in the aisles. Let us expose the dark operational mechanics of the holiday supply chain. Retail conglomerates routinely engage in a deceptive pricing practice known as price anchoring, quietly raising the baseline cost of their merchandise months in advance, only to dramatically slash it back down to its standard retail price on Friday morning, creating a completely artificial illusion of a massive discount. More terrifyingly, the electronics industry manufactures entirely distinct, lower-quality derivative products specifically for the holiday rush. That incredibly cheap television set you purchased on Black Friday was never sold at a higher price. It was constructed using cheaper plastics, inferior circuit boards, and fewer input ports in a dedicated factory line, engineered specifically to be sold as a low-cost, disposable piece of holiday bait that looks identical on the outside, but is structurally destined for an early grave. This calculated arithmetic brings us directly to the fractional deceptions of myth number 20. The innocent assumption that retail prices ending in 99 cents are merely a practical tool designed to help store accounting systems keep track of small change or distribute tax rates evenly. You assume that 1 penny difference is an insignificant piece of financial trivia. In the neurological laboratories of retail marketing, this is a highly potent exploit known as the left digit effect. Because the human brain reads written text from left to right, your visual cortex processes the very first digit it encounters before your rational mind can calculate the mathematical rounding. When you look at a price tag reading $9.99, your subconscious immediately categorizes that item as costing $9 rather than the $10 it actually represents. That single tiny penny shift tricks your brain into perceiving a massive, non-existent economic value, creating a permanent state of cognitive dissonance that silently drives billions of dollars in extra sales across the global marketplace. You are not saving money. Your brain is simply failing at basic, rapid estimation, and the corporate masters are banking the difference. The preservation of this artificial value becomes far more sinister when we examine the elite fashion landscape to dismantle myth number 21, the prestigious illusion that high-end luxury brands gracefully place their unsold designer clothing, luxury handbags, and premium footwear onto clearance racks or discount outlets at the end of every seasonal cycle. We love to believe that if we wait long enough, the remnants of high society will naturally trickle down to the working class at an affordable price. Let us expose the brutal, wasteful reality of elite brand management. To maintain an absolute aura of artificial scarcity, exclusivity, and untouchable prestige, multi-billion-dollar luxury fashion houses do not allow their excess inventory to be discounted. Instead, they systematically gather millions of dollars worth of perfect, pristine, unsold garments every single season and deliberately incinerate them in industrial burn facilities, shred them into unwearable fibers, or douse them in toxic chemical vats. They would quite literally rather reduce their own fine craftsmanship to literal ash and toxic smoke than allow an average citizen to purchase their branded logo at a lower price point, protecting a manufactured psychological illusion at the direct expense of the global environment. A similar corporate masquerade occurs during the liquidation process, bringing us straight to the predatory theater of myth number 22, the sentimental belief that going out of business or liquidation sales are run by the original beloved store owners to give their loyal community a final, generous opportunity to buy inventory at a steep discount. You see the yellow banners taped to the windows and feel a wave of nostalgia. In the corporate bankruptcy ecosystem, a liquidation is an entirely external, highly predatory operation. The moment a major retail chain files for bankruptcy, the keys to the inventory are immediately handed over to third-party asset management firms who specialize in liquidating distressed corporations. These firms do not offer discounts. Their very first act is to instantly raise the prices of all existing stock up to the absolute maximum manufacturer's suggested retail price, which is often significantly higher than what the store was selling them for the previous week. They then apply a fake 20% discount to that inflated price, slowly lowering the cost over several weeks while relying on consumer panic and nostalgia to clear out the warehouse, successfully selling outdated or defective inventory to an oblivious public for a premium. This financial entrapment expands into the digital domain through the predatory financing traps of myth number 23. The belief that instant store credit cards and modern buy now, pay later financing options are offered at the checkout counter as a friendly, helpful convenience to help you afford luxury goods without straining your immediate weekly budget. The cashier offers you an immediate 15% discount just for signing your name on a digital tablet. Let us examine the internal ledgers of the modern retail industry. Major clothing and department store chains frequently make significantly more net profit off the astronomical 30% interest rates and predatory late fees generated by their credit programs than they do from selling the actual physical clothes on their racks. The merchandise is merely the bait. The true product is your future labor, locked into a high-interest debt spiral that permanently drains your purchasing power. They are not trying to help you afford a luxury jacket. They are buying an option on your future paychecks, transforming an ordinary consumer into a permanent, interest-paying corporate tenant. Finally, we decode the frantic urgency of the digital marketplace to expose the algorithmic deceits of myth number 24, the assumption that limited edition banners, flashing countdown timers, or ominous warnings reading "Only 3 items left in stock" on e-commerce websites are real-time, accurate reflections of actual warehouse logistics. You feel your heart rate spike, your palms sweat, and you rush to input your credit card details before the item vanishes forever. This is an entirely manufactured digital scarcity exploit. E-commerce platforms utilize malicious background code known as dark patterns to deliberately generate completely fictitious stock numbers and artificial countdown clocks that are entirely unlinked to actual inventory. The website is simply running a basic script designed to induce immediate psychological panic, bypassing your logical budgeting defenses and forcing an immediate impulse purchase before you have the cognitive space to realize you don't actually need the product. The timer isn't counting down to an empty warehouse. It is counting down to the exact moment your rational mind surrenders to a corporate algorithm. We step out of the physical shopping center and plug ourselves directly into the glowing, high-voltage grid of the consumer technology sector for Part 5. A digital landscape where the corporate lies are no longer printed on paper, but are written directly into the proprietary source code of your electronic devices. We begin our digital audit by shattering the artificial lifespan of myth number 25, the widespread, submissive acceptance that your expensive smartphones, laptops, and tablets break down or slow to a crawl after a few short years, purely because the physical hardware naturally degrades over time. You assume your device is simply growing old and tired. In the executive boardrooms of Silicon Valley, this decay is a meticulously calculated economic strategy known as planned obsolescence. Multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerates do not design devices to last. They design them to expire. They intentionally construct hardware with unreplaceable components, using heavy industrial glue to seal batteries directly to the chassis, meaning a simple, degraded battery forces the consumer to throw away the entire $1,000 device. More sinisterly, they deploy mandatory operating system updates that artificially throttle your central processing unit, intentionally slowing down your perfectly functional older phone under the deceptive guise of protecting battery health. It is a digital sabotage campaign engineered to induce maximum consumer frustration, forcing you into an endless, artificial 3-year upgrade cycle where you are trapped paying a permanent subscription fee just to possess a functioning phone. This spec sheet manipulation brings us straight to the optical illusions of myth number 26, the commercial marketing fantasy that a higher number of megapixels in a smartphone camera automatically translates into significantly better, sharper, and more professional photographs. The corporate marketing machine waves massive numbers like 48, 64, or 100 megapixels across their billboards to convince you that their latest model possesses revolutionary photographic clarity. Let us expose the physical laws of optical physics that the marketing department chooses to ignore. A megapixel is simply a measurement of the total number of pixels on a camera sensor, not a measurement of light quality. Because smartphone bodies must remain incredibly thin, corporations are forced to pack these millions of tiny pixels onto microscopic, incredibly cheap image sensors. When you pack too many pixels onto a tiny piece of silicon, individual pixels become too small to capture sufficient light, resulting in massive amounts of digital noise, grainy shadows, and blurry low-light performance. To mask this physical failure, the phone's internal software applies incredibly aggressive artificial intelligence smoothing that strips away authentic texture, turning your family photos into artificial, plastic-looking paintings. You are not buying a superior optical instrument, you are buying an inflated marketing metric that ruins your image data just to win a spec sheet war. Your digital autonomy is further compromised when we open a web browser to expose the privacy theater of myth number 27. The comforting belief that activating incognito mode or opening a private browsing tab completely cloaks your internet history, keeping your midnight searches and sensitive medical queries entirely hidden from internet service providers, prying websites, and corporate data brokers. The graphic interface display shows a little icon of a secret agent wearing a fedora and trench coat, giving you a false sense of absolute digital invisibility. This entire interface is a profound corporate misdirection. Incognito mode does only one very basic thing. It prevents your local web browser from saving your history, cookies, and form data locally onto your own physical device. The moment those data packets leave your computer, your digital footprint is entirely naked. Your internet service provider logs every single domain you visit, while massive data syndicates like Google and Facebook continue to track your precise physical location, monitor your browsing behaviors across multiple tabs, and profile your digital identity in real time, matching your supposedly private session directly to your permanent consumer advertising profile. The fedora-wearing spy isn't protecting you from the corporate surveillance state. He is simply hiding your history from the person standing directly behind your chair. This silent exploitation deepens when we examine the app ecosystem to dismantle myth number 28, the naive utopian belief that free smartphone applications, mobile games, and massive social media platforms are philanthropic public services funded purely by those tiny, easily ignorable advertisement banners sitting at the bottom of the screen. We love to think we are getting an incredible suite of global communication tools for the grand price of $0. In the modern surveillance economy, there is an absolute structural rule. If you are not paying for the product, you are not the customer. You are the product being sold. These supposedly free platforms function as sophisticated, high-efficiency data harvesting operations. They aggressively mine your precise, real-time geographic location, catalog your exact biometrics, scan your private contact lists, and utilize background algorithms to analyze the linguistic patterns of your text messages. This granular personal data is packaged into hyper-detailed behavioral profiles and sold at auction to corporate bidders, political campaigns, and insurance underwriters who use the data to manipulate your future real-world decisions. You are trading your psychological sovereignty and total privacy for a minor digital convenience, transforming your life into a digital goldmine for corporate algorithms. The retail upselling machine uses a similar lack of consumer technical knowledge to sustain myth number 29, the retail scam that premium gold-plated digital cables, expensive braided cords, and high-priced accessories provide a vastly superior, noticeably clearer visual and audio transfer for your home entertainment systems. The salesperson in the blue shirt looks you in the eye and insists that a $100 HDMI cable is necessary to truly unlock the rich colors of your new ultra-high-definition television. Let us look at the mathematics of digital signal processing. In the old era of analog television, a gold-plated cable actually mattered because analog signals suffered from gradual signal degradation. But in the modern digital era, data travels exclusively as a binary stream of absolute ones and zeros. A generic $5 black plastic cable purchased online delivers the mathematically identical pixel-for-pixel stream of data as a $100 luxury cable wrapped in nylon and tipped with gold. The binary code either arrives completely or it does not arrive at all. There is no middle ground where gold plating makes a 1 look prettier or a 0 look more profound. The entire luxury accessory industry is a psychological tax levied against consumers who do not understand binary math, allowing stores to extract pure profit from a simple piece of copper wire. Finally, we look at the silent plastic cylinders sitting on your kitchen counters to expose the ambient surveillance of myth number 30. The corporate assurance that smart home assistants and voice-activated devices are entirely passive listeners that only record or analyze your private home audio after you explicitly utter the magic wake word. They tell you that your privacy is their highest priority. In the dark reality of audio caching logistics, These devices must maintain a constant, uninterrupted rolling audio buffer in their memory chips just to listen for the wake word in the first place. Because human speech is messy and unpredictable, these devices frequently misinterpret ordinary household conversations, television dialogue, or a child's laughter as the activation command. When this false trigger occurs, the device immediately uploads your private living room audio clips straight to corporate servers, where they are permanently archived and frequently reviewed by human contractors to train their artificial intelligence networks. Your arguments, your financial discussions, and your intimate domestic moments are systematically transcribed and catalogued, transforming your private home into a corporate listening post where you paid the subscription cost to wiretap yourself. We step away from the glowing circuitry of consumer electronics and enter the gleaming, porcelain-tiled sanctuary of the personal care industry for Part 6, a multi-billion-dollar empire of vanity built entirely upon the profitable manufacturing of human insecurity. We begin our biological audit under the showerhead by popping the bubbly facade of myth number 31, the deep-seated, comforting belief that shampoos, body washes, and facial cleansers must produce a thick, luxurious mountain of foam to properly dissolve dirt and sanitize your body. You step into the shower, rub the product into your scalp, and celebrate the rich white suds as absolute proof of hygiene. Let us expose the chemical deception of the cosmetic laboratory. The bubbles you see have absolutely zero cleansing capability. The corporate masters intentionally inject cheap, highly industrial surfactants, most notably sodium lauryl sulfate, or SLS, into their formulas for the sole purpose of generating a theatrical visual performance. Their mid-century marketing research revealed that consumers could be easily manipulated into buying more product if they equated foam with performance. In reality, these aggressive industrial frothing agents act as harsh degreasers that completely strip away your body's natural sebum, the essential lipid barrier designed to protect your skin from environmental pathogens. The corporation creates a synthetic foam that irritates your skin and dries out your hair, masterfully forcing you to buy an additional bottle of expensive chemical conditioner to artificially replace the very moisture they just stripped away. This biological exploitation transitions smoothly from the bathroom mirror into the holistic altar of the wellness industry to dismantle myth number 32, the absolute commercial certainty that body detox patches, cold-pressed juices, and specialized herbal teas are medically necessary interventions required to flush heavy metals and environmental toxins out of your sluggish anatomy. The packaging displays serene bamboo forests and clinical-looking diagrams, warning you that your modern lifestyle has left your cells choked with invisible poisons. Let us reintroduce basic human biology to the marketing board. Unless you are suffering from acute organ failure in an emergency room, you already possess a highly advanced, automated, multi-tiered detoxification system that operates 24 hours a day, completely free of charge. Your liver and your kidneys. These evolutionary marvels perform 100% of your body's filtration and waste management without any assistance from a celebrity-endorsed wellness brand. The multi-billion-dollar detox industry relies on primitive superstition and clever chemical parlor tricks. Those expensive foot patches that you stick to your skin overnight do not draw toxins out through your pores. They are simply coated with dry wood vinegar and chemical dyes that turn a dramatic sludge black the moment they interact with ordinary, natural human sweat. The expensive detox teas are structurally nothing more than aggressive, low-grade herbal laxatives designed to irritate your gastrointestinal tract, forcing a rapid loss of water weight that creates the brief illusion of a flattened stomach while leaving your wallet thoroughly dehydrated. The manufacturing of biological shame becomes far more historically calculation when we examine the grooming aisle to expose myth number 33, the manufactured narrative that razor companies introduced body shaving for women as a natural, inevitable progression of modern hygiene, progressive cleanliness, and civilized feminine standards. We are led to believe that hairlessness is an ancient, universal aesthetic preference. Let us pierce the executive history of the early 20th century. Around the year 1915, the corporate directors of the King Camp Gillette Razor Company faced a catastrophic economic crisis. They had successfully saturated the male shaving market, and their profit margins were flattening out. To double their global consumer base overnight, they launched a highly aggressive, deeply cynical psychological warfare campaign directed entirely at the female population. They purchased massive spreads in fashion magazines, publishing patronizing advertisements that suddenly declared female underarm and leg hair to be a shocking, unhygienic social disgrace and an absolute violation of modern etiquette. They didn't introduce the razor to women to improve their health. They quite literally invented a brand new cultural insecurity out of thin air, convincing generations of women to look at their natural anatomy with intense social horror, solely to ensure that a corporate factory in Boston could sell twice as many steel blades every single month. A mathematically identical psychological spell is cast every night at the vanity table, leading us directly to the chronological illusions of myth number 34. The extravagant promise that luxury anti-aging skin creams, gold-infused serums, and overnight night lotions can physically reverse deep wrinkles, repair genetic cellular structures, and stop the biological clock while you sleep. The sleek glass jars feature pseudo-scientific vocabulary words like cellular matrix rejuvenation and DNA-targeted peptides, charging hundreds of dollars an ounce for a miracle in a bottle. Let us look through the lens of dermatology at this cosmetic theater. No over-the-counter lotion can alter the deep, structural collagen degradation or subcutaneous fat loss that dictates the natural human aging process. The entire multi-billion-dollar anti-aging economy relies on temporary, short-term optical inflation. These expensive creams are formulated with basic, incredibly cheap humectants like glycerin or hyaluronic acid, alongside slick industrial silicones. When smeared onto your face, these ingredients act like a microscopic sponge, pulling moisture from the air or the deeper layers of your tissue to temporarily swell and bloat the outermost layer of your skin. This artificial swelling flattens out fine lines and wrinkles for a few brief hours, creating a fleeting optical illusion of youth that completely evaporates the moment you wash your face in the morning, requiring you to apply another expensive layer to maintain the corporate masquerade. This pharmaceutical theater expands directly into your mouth, bringing us to the historical fabrications of myth number 35, the absolute conviction that standard alcohol-based mouthwash is a critical, dentist-mandated tool absolutely required to cure chronic bad breath, eliminate oral bacteria, and maintain proper dental hygiene. You gargle a bright blue liquid every morning, enduring a painful chemical burn that you assume is the feeling of medical success. Let us uncover the origins of this liquid fire. For the first several decades of its commercial life, the product known as Listerine was sold alternatively as an industrial floor cleaner, a surgical antiseptic, and a remedy for sweaty feet. It was a slow-selling, non-essential chemical compound until the 1920s, when the company's marketing executives unearned an obscure, archaic Latin medical description for bad breath: halitosis. They launched a massive nationwide advertising campaign that framed ordinary, natural breath odor not as a minor, everyday human reality that could be resolved with a glass of water, but as a devastating, terrifying medical deformity that would destroy your marriage, ruin your career, and leave you socially isolated. They engineered a fake medical crisis to sell a repackaged floor cleaner, transforming a cheap, non-essential antiseptic into a mandatory daily psychological dependency that people purchase out of sheer, unadulterated social terror. Finally, we dismantle the ultimate structural deception of the cosmetics counter by unmasking myth number 36, the rigid consumer doctrine that using highly specialized, targeted chemical products for your face, your eyes, your neck, your hands, and your feet is absolutely mandatory because the skin on each part of your body varies completely in its biological configuration. The corporate giants present you with a complex, exhausting, multi-step routine, forcing you to purchase 5 or 6 distinct, tiny bottles to maintain a single human body. This is a classic exercise in product differentiation and shelf space domination. If you take those 5 specialized jars into a chemical laboratory and analyze their contents, you will discover that the foundational formula across all of them is mathematically identical. A basic, incredibly cheap emulsion of ordinary mineral oil, water, and wax. The skincare conglomerates take this basic base cream, pack it into 4 different shapes of packaging, change the synthetic fragrance slightly, and slap a different label on each box. They then ruthlessly exploit your psychological assumptions, upselling the exact same basic lotion as a specialized eye cream at a staggering 500% markup compared to the giant bottle labeled for your body. The system is rigged to compartmentalize your body into individual corporate revenue streams, making you pay a massive premium for a series of different words printed on the exact same chemical soup. We arrive at the final frontier of our corporate re-education for Part 7, where we pull back the absolute final layers of institutional theatre and confront the grand, overarching matrices of systemic deception. We begin by shattering the ultimate environmental fairy tale of the packaging industry. Myth number 37, the comforting civic belief that the tiny chasing arrows recycling symbol printed on the bottom of a plastic bottle serves as a binding material guarantee that the item will be responsibly melted down, purified, and reused in a sustainable manufacturing loop. You separate your garbage into neat little plastic bins, feeling a righteous wave of environmental stewardship. Let us expose the dark industrial history of petrochemical public relations. The iconic triangular symbol with a number inside is not an environmental certification mark. It is a resin identification code, engineered and heavily marketed in the late 20th century by the multi-billion-dollar oil and plastics lobby. They designed this system with intentional, malicious, graphic, deceptive similarity to the official recycling icon for the explicit purpose of shifting the massive moral guilt of global plastic pollution entirely off their own balance sheets and onto the shoulders of the ordinary consumer. The cold, mathematical reality of industrial waste logistics is that the vast majority of consumer plastics are chemically impossible to recycle economically, or they degrade so severely upon melting that they cannot be reused for food-grade packaging. Less than 9% of all plastic ever manufactured in human history has actually been recycled. The remaining 91% is either incinerated into toxic atmospheric ash or shipped directly to sprawling landfills and pristine oceans, meaning your dedicated sorting ritual is merely a corporate psychological placebo designed to neutralize your guilt so you can continue purchasing single-use plastics without a guilty conscience. This calculated corporate matrix shifts seamlessly from the supermarket aisle to the digital heavens to dismantle myth number 38, the naive market assumption that airline ticket prices fluctuate across your web browser purely because of real-time seat availability, standard seasonal demand, and shifting aviation fuel costs. You assume you are simply watching the clean laws of supply and demand unfold on your screen. In truth, you are caught inside the jaws of a predatory, automated surveillance engine known as a dynamic pricing tracking algorithm. Airline booking portals do not look at the physical airplane. They look exclusively at you. When you search for a flight route multiple times, the website's background code monitors your digital behavior, cataloging your precise geographical location, tracking your device type, and measuring the frantic frequency of your clicks. If the algorithm detects that you are searching from an expensive smartphone or a high-income postal code, or if your repeated queries signal a sense of professional or personal urgency, it will artificially and systematically inflate the ticket cost by hundreds of dollars on your next refresh. They are not calculating the weight of the aircraft, They are calculating the precise breaking point of your psychological resistance, creating an artificial panic to force an immediate, high-cost booking before the price supposedly climbs even higher. The erosion of your personal property rights becomes far more physically intrusive when we park our vehicles in the driveway to confront the automotive illusions of myth number 39. The traditional, comforting belief that when you sign a financing contract and drive a brand new car off the dealership lot, you own 100% of that vehicle's physical hardware, mechanical components, and engineering features forever. You paid the sticker price, so you assume the machine belongs to you. Welcome to the terrifying era of software as a service and digital enclosure in the heavy manufacturing sector. Modern automotive conglomerates are quietly transforming the traditional concept of ownership into a permanent, high-cost tenancy. They build the physical wiring, the heating elements, the camera arrays, and the engine assists directly into the physical chassis of the car at the factory line, but they block them behind artificial, digital encryption walls. If you want your heated seats to activate during a freezing winter morning, or if you want your remote starter to function from across the parking lot, you are legally and digitally compelled to pay a mandatory monthly subscription fee to the manufacturer's corporate server. The moment you stop paying the fee, they remotely deactivate the hardware you already purchased, transforming an independent consumer into a permanent renter of their own vehicle, and proving that your modern car is merely a wheeled computer terminal engineered to continuously drain your bank account through over-the-air corporate extortions. This predatory stewardship, disguised as philanthropy, brings us straight to the clothing racks to strip the greenwashed varnish off myth number 40. The corporate narrative that fast fashion empires launch massive, high-visibility clothing donation drives and textile recycling programs because they possess a deep, responsible urge to repurpose your old, discarded garments into new fibers. You drop off a bag of old shirts, receive a glossy 10% off coupon, and celebrate your commitment to a circular economy. Let us uncover the global waste logistics of the apparel industry. This entire donation infrastructure functions as a massive public relations cover-up designed to obscure the reality of industrial overproduction. Fast fashion giants manufacture clothes at such an unsustainable, hyper-accelerated rate that the global marketplace cannot physically absorb the volume. The vast majority of the clothing items you drop into those charitable store bins are not repurposed. They are packed into massive industrial bales and shipped across oceans to be dumped directly into illegal landfills, burning rivers, and fragile desert ecosystems in developing countries like Ghana and Chile. The corporate masters do not want your old clothes, they want your foot traffic. The donation voucher they handed you is a calculated psychological trap, explicitly engineered to incentivize you to return straight to their retail floor to purchase more cheap, disposable synthetic garments, accelerating the very cycle of ecological destruction they claim to be solving. The mastery of this psychological warfare reaches its absolute historical peak when we examine the global energy grid to expose the grand manipulation of myth number 41, the absolute certainty that carbon footprint calculators and individual ecological tracking tools are objective, purely scientific instruments created by independent environmental organizations to help you measure and minimize your personal impact on the Earth's climate. We meticulously calculate our flight miles, turn off our light bulbs, and feel a deep sense of personal accountability for global warming. This entire intellectual apparatus is the result of one of the most brilliant, sophisticated, and deeply cynical corporate counterintelligence campaigns ever executed. In the year 2004, the multi-billion-dollar oil conglomerate, British Petroleum, working in direct tandem with the elite public relations firm Ogilvy and Mather, concocted and popularized the phrase carbon footprint and launched the world's very first online consumer carbon calculator. This was not an act of environmental awakening, it was a masterful psychological deflection campaign. By training the global populace to obsessively monitor their individual light bulb choices, their dietary habits, and their recycling bins, The fossil fuel industry successfully shifted the systemic blame for planetary ecological collapse entirely off multinational drilling operations and placed it directly onto the conscience of the individual citizen. They successfully trained the victim to blame themselves for the crime, ensuring that the true industrial engines of pollution could continue extracting trillions of dollars of oil from the earth, completely unbothered by public regulation. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate digital surrender of the modern era, the grand legal illusion of myth number 42, the belief that clicking the little box reading, "I accept the terms and conditions," is just a standard, harmless, bureaucratic formality that you must quickly bypass before utilizing a basic smartphone application, a streaming service, or a social media network. You swipe past the mountain of dense legalese without reading a single word, assuming it is just standard corporate boilerplate protecting them from frivolous lawsuits. In the cold light of constitutional law, that single click is an act of total digital capitulation. By clicking that box, you are signing a legally binding contract that frequently grants massive technology conglomerates permanent, royalty-free, and unrestricted rights to your physical voice recordings, your biometric facial data, and the intricate behavioral psychology patterns of your daily screen interactions. Deep within those unreadable paragraphs, written by teams of corporate lawyers at maximum linguistic density, you routinely surrender your legal right to participate in class action lawsuits, grant permission for the app to monitor your physical location even when the software is closed, and allow them to sell your psychological profiles to third-party brokers. It is an absolute surrender of your digital sovereignty, wrapped in a tedious interface to ensure you never notice that you have voluntarily traded your fundamental human rights for a minor piece of entertainment. As we close the grand ledger on these 42 everyday corporate lies, the chilling conclusion becomes starkly apparent. The modern consumer landscape is not a neutral marketplace designed to serve your needs. It is a highly calibrated psychological warfare zone where your natural biological instincts, your environmental anxieties, and your financial vulnerabilities are systematically harvested by a sophisticated grid of corporate manipulation. Free will has been replaced by a series of engineered impulses. The only weapon you possess against this invisible architecture is an absolute, unwavering refusal to believe the marketing. Keep your eyes clear, question the packaging, and never forget that in the world of corporate capitalism, the dream they are selling you is always designed to be your nightmare.